Welcome back to Tales of Kind Souls, the place where stories of courage, humanity, and the extraordinary unfold right before your ears. Here, we dive into moments that challenge the ordinary and leave behind a mark of inspiration, wonder, or sometimes shock. Sit back, get comfortable, and let us take you on a journey today. This is the story of a quiet flight, a woman drifting into a peaceful nap in row 8, and the unthinkable turn of events that brought Navy SEALs to her side. It started on what was supposed to be a routine domestic flight in the United States. Passengers boarded quietly, carrying their bags, clutching their phones or adjusting their headphones, each one lost in the rhythm of travel. Among them was a young woman named Claire. She was 29 years old, dressed in simple jeans, a sweater, and carrying a worn leather backpack that had been with her for years. She wasn't traveling for business, nor for any glamorous reason. She had simply been visiting her sister and was now flying back home. Row 8, Seat A, her window spot, became her sanctuary. As soon as the seatbelt sign dimmed and the hum of the engines settled into that steady vibration travelers know so well, Claire leaned against the window, pulled up her hoodie, and let her eyelids close. She wasn't planning to sleep long, just a nap, just enough to carry her through the 2-hour flight. But what Claire didn't know was that thousands of feet below the aircraft, in a command room humming with radio chatter and flickering monitors, her name was being discussed. A classified tip had been passed to U.S. authorities just before the plane took off. A vague but urgent message. An international fugitive might be on board, hiding under a stolen identity. The tip did not come with a picture, only a name. And the name matched Claire's boarding information. The analysts double-checked. Claire's passport was clean. Her background was ordinary. She was a school teacher. She had no criminal record. Nothing matched the profile of an international threat. But the intel was specific. Row 8, a woman, and her name. The decision wasn't made lightly. If it was a false alarm, Claire would just continue her flight home, perhaps never even realizing she had been under suspicion. But if it was real, if she was who the tip suggested, then this flight might be carrying a person capable of far greater danger than anyone realized. Meanwhile, Claire drifted deeper into her nap. She dreamed of nothing in particular, just the haze of a mind lulled by altitude. The man beside her scrolled through his phone. A flight attendant rolled a cart down the aisle, offering drinks with a tired smile. The cabin was ordinary in every sense. Then the unexpected happened. At cruising altitude, the pilot made an unusual announcement. His voice was calm, professional, but carried a firmness that passengers noticed. Ladies and gentlemen, due to some unforeseen circumstances, we'll be making a priority landing at a secure airfield. Please remain seated and follow all crew instructions. Whispers filled the cabin. A secure airfield. That wasn't the usual language. Some thought it might be a medical emergency. Others exchanged worried looks. But nobody knew. Not yet. Claire stirred awake at the sound, blinking, rubbing her eyes. She pulled down her hood and sat up straighter, confused by the murmur of tension around her. Then she saw them. As the plane descended and taxied to a secluded corner of the runway, the passengers peered out the small, oval windows. Armed vehicles approached, black SUVs with tinted glass, and then figures. Men in tactical gear, helmets and body armor. Navy SEALs. The sight was chilling. This wasn't a routine security check. This was something else. Before anyone could fully react, the cabin door opened, and armed men filed inside, swiftly but silently. They didn't shout. They didn't brandish weapons carelessly. Their movements were precise, rehearsed, as though they had done this countless times. One of them spoke firmly but clearly. Everyone remain calm. Stay seated. We're here for a security operation. Passengers froze in place, wide-eyed. Some clutched their seatbelts tighter. A child began to whimper, hushed quickly by her mother. The atmosphere turned electric, heavy with fear and confusion, and then the team moved, straight toward row 8. Claire's breath caught. For a moment she thought they might be passing by. Maybe they were after someone else, but no. Their eyes locked on her, and the lead SEAL stopped at her row. "Ma'am, stand up slowly." Hands visible. Her heart thundered in her chest. "What? I haven't done anything." "Please, ma'am," the soldier said, his tone firm but not cruel. "Stand up!" The entire cabin was watching now, silence broken only by the drone of the engines and the occasional gasp. Claire's neighbor scooted back, pressing against his seat as if distance would shield him from whatever was happening. Claire stood, trembling, her hands raised slightly. The SEALs surrounded her, their presence overwhelming, their expressions unreadable behind the gear. "Row 8 confirmed," one of them muttered into a radio. Inside, Claire was panicking. Her mind raced. What was going on? Why her? Had her bag been mistaken for someone else's? Was she caught in some bizarre mix-up? She tried to speak, but her voice faltered. I'm a teacher. I don't understand." The SEAL leader gave a subtle nod, and two operatives guided her gently but firmly down the aisle. Every pair of eyes followed her. Passengers whispered, speculating wildly. To them, she was no longer just an ordinary traveler. She was someone dangerous, someone the Navy SEALs had come to capture mid-flight. The humiliation burned her cheeks. The confusion clouded her thoughts. She wanted to scream that she was innocent, that there had to be some mistake. But the armored men on either side of her weren't listening for explanations. They were listening for threats. On the tarmac, the scene was just as surreal. Claire was escorted down the steps of the plane and into the blinding sunlight where more vehicles waited. The roar of jet engines mixed with the crunch of boots on asphalt. "Secure the perimeter," a voice ordered. Claire was guided toward one of the SUVs. She looked back at the plane, where curious faces still peered through the windows. She wanted to disappear, but before they placed her inside, an officer approached with a folder. He glanced at her, then at the paperwork, his brows furrowing slightly. "Hold on," he said. The SEALs paused. Silence hung in the air. "Confirm identity again," the officer instructed. One of the team pulled out a device, a biometric scanner. Claire's fingerprints, her ID, her information, all verified in moments. The machine beeped, displaying a profile that was as ordinary as she had always known herself to be. "She's not the one," the officer muttered. Confusion rippled through the team. The tip had been precise. Row 8, a woman, Claire's name. But the deeper check revealed a flaw. Claire was not the fugitive. She was exactly who she claimed to be, a school teacher with nothing but a backpack of books and clothes. The officer looked at her, his stern expression softening slightly. "Ma'am, there's been a mistake. You're not under arrest. You'll be escorted safely from here, but the damage was done." Claire's world had already tilted off its axis. Back in the airport, Claire was taken to a quiet room where officials apologized in carefully measured words. They explained, at least as much as they could, that she had been caught in a case of mistaken identity tied to a sensitive operation. She was reassured that she was never in danger, that no harm would come to her. But how could she forget the image of armored soldiers surrounding her seat? How could she erase the eyes of every passenger burning into her as she walked down the aisle like a criminal? Claire didn't scream, didn't lash out. She sat in silence, processing, her hands trembling in her lap. Hours later, she was released. Her flight was rebooked, and she returned home, safe but forever changed. The story spread quickly among those who had been on board. Passengers shared it online, describing the moment Navy SEALs stormed the cabin and took away a woman from row 8. Speculation ran wild. Some believed she must have been guilty. Others defended her as a victim of mistaken suspicion. Claire herself stayed quiet. She went back to her classroom, back to her students, back to the rhythm of normal life. But within her the memory lingered. The reminder that sometimes the ordinary can be shattered in a heartbeat, that even innocence can be mistaken for danger under the right circumstances. And so, the story of Claire, the woman in row 8 who was just taking a nap until Navy SEALs surrounded her, remains one of those extraordinary tales where truth blurs with mystery, where fear collides with reality, and where a single misunderstanding can change the course of an entire day. It is a reminder of the weight carried by those who guard our skies, the fragility of trust, and the resilience of those who live through the unthinkable. This has been another story from Tales of Kind Souls, where we bring you the unexpected, the astonishing, and sometimes the heartbreaking stories of real lives touched by extraordinary moments. If you found yourself captivated by this journey, consider staying with us for more, because the world is full of stories waiting to be told, and sometimes the quietest moments lead to the loudest memories.